Oh, good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a start to a good week. I know I'm looking a little rough this morning, and that's because I have an interruption in the middle of the day with some rescue kittens that's going to require me to, of all things, not shower until after that's done because they're in quarantine, and it's a long story. Anyway, it has nothing to do with retroblasting, so sorry for that random aside. I was in the middle of working on Doctor Who Part 2. No official interruption there. I'm going to be working on that more this morning. But I wanted to give you guys some inside baseball that's been going on the other portals. I don't intend for this to expand over into the YouTube channel unless there's a major reason. But for those of you who follow the Facebook and everything, I wanted to give you some insight here on Patreon into what's been happening with this whole repro thing, because the long and the short of it is this, and I have, of course, as you know, I don't lie to you guys, and I certainly don't exaggerate when I'm not known for exaggeration when I tell you something. So, like, for example, if I tell you that a guy from Australia sent me a sail barge, I really did get a sail barge from a guy in Australia, all right? And I have the documentation and the receipts and all that stuff to back up when I say things like what I'm about to tell you. So I was threatened several weeks ago by somebody who was using a troll account that was trying to get in to various portals on retroblasting. The guy went by the name PunkoFop. And he would get on the Facebook, he would get on the Twitter, he would get on the YouTube comment section, and he would spew profanity and hateful personal attacks, and not just at me, but at other commenters. And so it took several attempts for Timothy and I to keep him off the channel, because he kept signing up with a new account with Facebook or YouTube and going at it again. And at one point on the Facebook page, he told me that he wanted me dead. Now, I'm not saying all of this to kind of like drum up, oh my gosh, the drama. I'm just giving you, you're the patron, so I'm giving you the latest developments in some of this, because it does get kind of interesting. So with that in the background, I was just trying to mitigate that. And this guy was he was coming at us because he had an anti-repro stance on Star Wars collecting, which I have now figured out they are the most insane group of collectors of any fan base, truly insane, and that's not in a good way. So he had been saying that's why he was coming after our channel, which is funny because we're not really specifically about that, but he decided to use us as a high-profile target and really come at us. And we did all the due diligence and reported the threats to Facebook and got him, gone. Well, around this time, I was getting some intelligence from people who were sympathetic to what I was going through, and they were saying, hey, there's a lot of this going on right now in the Star Wars collecting community. And I was sent screenshots from some of these groups that I had willingly separated from last year. Like I got tired of all the drama and all of the toxic stuff, and I left because it's just not a fun place to be. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a allergy attack this morning. And so I said, well, I'm out of these groups. I left of my own accord because I saw them banning all these people, and they were just true fonts of negativity. I mean, it was really wasn't a good place, these places. And so I said, nah, I'm out. And so and I had friends who were admins at some of these groups, and I told them, privately, I said, this is not a good situation for normal, well-adjusted collectors, and I don't want to be a part of this. And they respected that. So flash forward a few weeks after these PunkoFop threats had occurred, and the guy from Imperial Gunnery, John Paul Ragusa, he posts a video where he says that he's been threatened by the other side. And at first I was, and also in this video missive that he put on Facebook, he also claimed that Star Wars collectors were, who were anti-repro, were definitely the majority. And I was like, well, I don't even think there's a way for him to really claim that, because they've been banning people for so long. How do you really know? There's no way you could know that if you're cloistering yourself. I mean, if you're creating your own community of groupthink deliberately, how can you possibly claim that you're the majority? I mean, that's nuts. But I took a step back from that and I said, well, John claims to have been threatened. I don't know the guy. He also runs Imperial Castle, which is a storefront, like a vintage toy sales thing, I believe. And I said, well, I'm going to reach out to John and I'm going to see if maybe he'd be willing to work with me on a kind of statement of decorum. In other words, an appeal for decorum amongst these two groups in the toy collecting community. In other words, threats are never accepted or not acceptable no matter what camp you're in. Hateful rhetoric is not acceptable. Personal attacks are not acceptable and frowned upon. And so I sent him a message to that effect. And then he said, well, can we have a phone call? And I said, sure. And so he and I got on the phone right here in the studio. And we were talking about, the situation, him being threatened and people being attacked and all this kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, it's gotten out of control. And I was a little concerned because, at one point I said, the behavior in the anti-repro groups of banning and melting toys and all this, it creates a very toxic environment. And it creates an environment of us versus them. And he was like, well, these groups should be allowed to set and enforce their own rules. And I said, okay. And see, that was when I started to realize that this is probably not going to work. I said, yeah, John, I get that. I said, but it also has to be accepted that when you set up certain rules, you foster certain types of cultures. And in this case, you're fostering an us versus them culture when you do that. And that's what creates this kind of behavior. It's not quite a chicken or the egg situation here. Because what they're doing is not only are they harassing people through fake troll accounts, they're now also going after eBay sellers and reporting them for counterfeiting, which is hilarious because for the 20 plus years that eBay has been in existence, reproduction items across all types of products have been readily available, and knockoff items for that matter. I mean, go look at Japanese lion bots, which are just rebranded Voltrons, Matchbox Voltrons. They've been around forever. They're a mainstay of the toy collecting community at this point. But the Star Wars people have taken it in a different direction. Now they've gone on the attack with this crusade. And I pointed that out to him, and he wasn't very receptive to that. And he kept saying, well, there's bad actors on both sides. And I'm like, well, yes and no. So I went ahead and I said, well, we need to work on a statement about behavior. And he agreed. I said, great. So he went off to go talk to his people, admitting at the time that it was going to be hard to get his people on board to even talk to me. And I'm like, well, if they're not even willing to talk about a statement that stands up against bad behavior, what kind of communities are they really operating there? So I said, fine, I'll go talk to Toy Polloi and Analog Toys and a number of others and see if I can get them on board to do a joint statement about everybody getting along and not being jerks. And then a few days, hours later, I was alerted to the fact that John got into a big fight on a live auction with the head of the Imperial Commissary, Michael Havens. And, you know, I was like, they're even fighting amongst each other. Like they're eating their own at this point. And I said, well, I couldn't help myself. And I just kind of threw in on the video clip that had been pulled. Somebody had pulled the video clip and said, watch these two guys go at it. You know, it's ridiculous. And that wasn't me, that was somebody else. And I just wrote on the clip and I was like, in a comment, I was like, yes, look at these, this bastion of, orthodox collecting maturity here or something like that. And so, John got upset because he thought that I was slamming him when what I was really doing was slamming Haven's behavior. And so then John wanted me to clarify my statement. So I said, okay, well, I will. And I wrote this long statement about everything I've just told you about, these collector groups are out of control and they're doing this and they're doing that. And, it creates a kind of cultural behavior in their groups that we're now seeing play out even amongst their leadership, where their leadership is combative and gets in embarrassing fights in public and all that kind of stuff. And I posted that as an extended comment on that little video clip, and then I posted it on the Facebook page, the Retroblasting Facebook page, as a note. And of course that blew up because then, and I knew that it would, but this is where it gets interesting. And I know that's been a long preamble to get to where we are, but trust me, you're going to find this interesting. And what I'm about to tell you, I'm going to preface this by saying, I'm telling you this because you guys are the patrons and because you deserve to have the inside scoop on all this. I am not giving you this information with the intent that I want reprisal or I want you guys to do anything about it or anything like that. I'm simply sharing information because you guys are part of the community and you are the upper echelon of the community and you deserve to know what's going on. But I would encourage no action on your part in regards to any of this. I'm just simply giving you the inside baseball into the toy collecting world, as I promised that I would do as part of both Retroblasting and the Patreon community. That said, in the comments on the Facebook page for this post, John made a statement about how he thought the statement was well written, and but he felt like there was some false equivalencies and something else or whatever. And he said that he was going to write his own statement on Imperial gunnery. And underneath that, this person named Joe started writing in all over the place, talking about how Retroblasting was not coming clean on our role with Smith Lord Creations. And then he went on to claim, or declare, or however you want to phrase it, that Retroblasting was actually the official distributor for Smith Lord Creations toys, accessories, figures, and products in the United States. And then he proceeded to try and grill me like under a lamp in an interrogation room style about my dealings with Smith Lord, and he wanted to see the invoices, quote unquote invoices. He was barking at me like, this is a yes or no question. Are you selling blah, 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 And here's the funniest part about all this. One, this guy, I have the screenshots, which were sent to me through that, people sending me an intel. It was coincidental because when I saw his name, I was like, wait a minute, this is the guy. This is the guy who was on the other groups asking how to start troll accounts. And I have screenshots of this guy also being the guy who was going after eBay sellers and filling out fraud reports against them to get their listings pulled down. So I called the guy out on it. I said, you really should have kept your head low. You're the guy. Like, you're the poster child for all of this toxicity. You are the guy. And he was like, well, I was just joking about the troll accounts. And I'm like, that doesn't look good for you here. And then he kept grilling me about he kept redirecting. He was redirecting, trying to keep harping on, where were you on the night of February something, and, are you Smith Lord Creations, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, first of all, this is insanity. Retroblasting is not a toy seller. We never have been. And I told the guy that, and then he was like, yes or no. Like, in other words, that wasn't enough of a negative. And I kind of went at it with the guy. But I was like, no, we are not. This is a harebrained idea. We are not Smith Lord Creations. We are not a shadow distributor. We do not sell toys. We do not. It's insane, the things that the level that they've gone to. And I told the guy, look, I want you to get off my page. I don't want you around here anymore. There's the exit. You need to go. Well, I've got my information. I've got all the answers. It's like, what are you, Columbo? Like, the level of entitlement that these people exhibit, what they think they're entitled to and have the right to do and say, is appalling. I mean, it's really appalling. And I talked to John about it. I contacted John and I said, what the hell is going on here with this guy? And to my immense disappointment, John started saying what a great guy this Joe guy was and how he had brought so much to the hobby. They love that phrase, to the hobby. Didn't acknowledge, didn't commiserate, didn't sympathize, didn't say, yes, you're right, that's wrong of him to grill you like that and assume that level of conspiracy. No, all he said was, LOL, well, John is very thorough. Or sorry, Joe. He said, well, Joe is very thorough. That's what John said. It is appalling to me how dismissive the leadership of these groups are when it comes to their members' behavior. And it's because they approve of it. They approve of it. And I frankly, I don't think we're going to get anywhere as a toy community with that group of people to offer up a statement of decorum. I don't think it's going to happen. But just for the record, I am not Smith Lord Creations, and I know you guys already know that, but I'm just saying it. I don't sell toys. As a matter of fact, I don't even have promotional deals with any company of any kind. And guess what? Smith Lord Creations, in a good-natured way, tried to offer me free toys. And I refused because, as I've said 100 times, if I'm not taking the risk financially, I cannot in good conscience give an opinion about something. Now, at times, there have been people that have sent me things, and I have always disclosed that. And sometimes, with a P.O. box, things can be sent to you, like that Scalextric set. It was sent to me because I had already done an unbiased video about the quick builds that I bought in York, the Airfix ones. And so I felt comfortable going, okay, this guy was approving of that video and he's offering this up of his own volition. So clearly he's cool with the way that I do a video. He did not ask for any specific kind of benefit for, he didn't ask for a guaranteed positive review, nothing like that. So I felt comfortable having already done one video on my own saying, sure, I'll take the slot car set and review it. And as you saw, I've posted a picture or two for some of the patrons. I'm already working on that video right now. But when it came down to Smith Lord Creations, I've purchased everything that I've gone after to review. So, for example, I didn't want to review the blue snaggletooth and the yak face, and I told them that I don't want to buy those. I already have those. They're already in my collection. The vintage originals. I don't need to buy those, so I'm not going to review those. And they sent them anyway because they already have them. They said, "Well, we just want you to have them. You don't have to do a video." And I said, "Oh, okay." Full disclosure, I have since sent those on to somebody else for free because I didn't need them in my collection. I didn't want them. My point is that retroblasting does things differently. We don't want a lot of free stuff. And that's why it really got me burned when this guy was saying this kind of stuff, especially in front of my broader audience, much like if somebody accuses me of making up Australian people. And it's because I buy the things that I review 97% of the time, probably more than that. I take the risk. Like even with Yojo Outlet, I take the risk to buy the parts that I need so that I can confidently tell you Yojo Outlet is a great place to buy your parts. I buy my parts from them. These figures from Smith Lord Creations are pretty decent. I'll say that because I put the money down to review that Bantha that's going to be coming at some point, or to review those new figures. I paid for them because I want you guys to know that I'm taking the risk right alongside you. And so that really did burn me up. And I'm sorry this morning message is long and kind of negative, kind of a downer, but I want you guys to know what's going on in the background. And I felt like this was a big one to let you know, especially given that the leadership of the anti-repro community is going to do nothing about this Joe guy. This Joe guy is a very likely candidate to be Punkofop. Now, he very well might not be. I have no evidence aside from the fact that he's coming at me like a spider monkey about crazy conspiracy theories, which Punkofop didn't do. He was just profane and wanted me dead. But these keyboard warriors can do crazy stuff. And it doesn't look like the imperial commissaries and gunneries of the world want to keep them in check. They like the way they do business. And I've made my statement publicly, and I'm gonna, unless something else occurs, I'm gonna leave it at that. But just be aware that this stuff is going on, and that it can get serious, not just from a legal perspective, but from a personal safety perspective. So just be aware of that, and be excellent to each other. Honestly, to quote a great vintage Gen X movie, be excellent to each other. To quote another great 80s movie, be nice until it's time not to be nice. But always start by being nice. And that's what I try to do as well. So I hope you guys are set up for a nice week. I hope you guys are set up for an excellent week. And I'm going to keep working on some videos, and you'll be seeing them here on Patreon real soon. I'll talk to you later.